what's going on? Welcome back to another edition of the SCS podcast. And man, I gotta tell you, I'm super excited for this episode. I feel like I finally hit the big time. I'm having a writer for NBC, Yahoo Sports, and Roto World, which is where I first heard of him, Michael Gallagher. Michael, thank you so much for being on the show. How you doing, man?
I'm great, man. Enjoyed all the basketball from Monday. Dig into some Nuggets we can talk about, both literally and it's in the Denver Nuggets, and then kind of like stat nuggets we'll throw along here. But some good games last night. The extra long fourth quarter at Staples kept us up late last night, but ready to talk some hoops, man.
Are you a Denver Nuggets fan?
Nope.
I see a ton of Nuggets stuff on your Twitter feed.
No, well, that's just because they need to play Nikola Jokic a little more. But yeah, I tend to every time there's a particular lineup thing that just doesn't make sense, I tend to beat a dead horse with it. Like, I've done this for pretty much any time there's a team that's struggling and just not using their personnel correctly. Like, I've always been obsessed with, like, kind of lineup combos and things, and we'll talk about that. With like, Denver's glaring bad for, like, the most misused player, even multiple players. And Emmanuel Moutier's, everything he touches is turning to dirt. So, Denver's fun to talk about.
Yeah, you know what? Let's dive into them. They were going to be one topic on the show as is, and they obviously are a super interesting situation. You mentioned Moutier. It seems like he's regressed a bit this year. The Jokic and Nurkic front court hasn't necessarily been able to play together like they expected. Any overall thoughts on the direction their franchise is heading?
Yeah, the Jerkic lineup, the Nurkic and Jokic lineup, that looked like it was going to be interesting. They had some success with it in the preseason. And they were like, all right, we're going to start them. And it was like big news because they didn't really do this last year. They did it, I want to say, their last 15 games, they played about 8 minutes together per game, something along those lines. And it was all right. So they're like, all right, we'll try it again. And it just didn't work because Mike Malone's pet peeve on defense is giving up open threes. Whenever his team gives up an open three and the Denver broadcast always like pans to Malone, he just loses it. Like, he hates it. Because his team gives up so many open threes. And, man, like Wes Matthews last night, he just walked up into a three. I want to say no one was around him for like 10 feet. Like Wes Matthews of all people. So, yeah, I mean, that's just bad. So they got that figured out. And as much as we love Nurkic for what he had probably top 5 most impressive preseasons, right? So, but now he's had probably the top or bottom 5 down seasons. He's just so bad. He won't leave his little post around the rim. He just likes to make blocks. He likes to make plays. His team defense is really bad. He goes under screens or like when he's getting a screen, just the help is just all messed up. So he's got a lot of work to do. Meanwhile, Nikola Jokic has been really good, just all around. Shooting the ball well. He's had a 72 true shooting percentage in his last 5. Rebounding rate's like 24%. He's just killing. So you would think he would play him, Malone would play him more, but he actually said after the game with only 26 minutes that he's played him too much at 26 minutes. So, like, just what are you doing? Why won't you play this guy 30 minutes, man? Like, he's your best player. Wilson Chandler's in the running too, but what are your impressions on the Nurkic-Jokic, and do you think they should flip him? I mean, I think it makes way more sense to flip him, considering Nurkic can be a high-volume kind of a guy in second unit.
Yeah, is it just one of those things where neither can really guard the power forward spot, and they both are more rim protecting type centers, I guess?
A little bit of both. Yeah, it's just that the Nurks, like, just they couldn't switch on defense. Like, there's just too many complications because like they're just too slow back there. So it's more about Nurk than Jokic. Like, Jokic he did okay on fours, but just all the cross matching and stuff really messed him up.
Yeah, I mean, if I have to pick one, I'm definitely going with Jokic. Maybe that's just because I love big men who can pass. I grew up like a fan of those Sacramento Kings teams with Vlade Divac and Chris Webber.
Vitas Sabonis' son, man. Yeah, so I'm with you, man. His assists are up. I think he has like 3.5 assists in his last like handful of games, man, in limited playing time. Like, his assist rate's pretty good. So yeah, like you said, he is a do-it-all kind of a guy and really underrated, man. And it's too bad. Like, he needs to play more.
Yeah, I'm torn on a lot of this stuff here with the Nuggets because on one hand, I really do believe in when you have two guys with this much potential and they're that young, you kind of want to just let them develop. And I hate when teams, force trades too quickly or want to give up on something too quickly. But like you were saying, it seems like they gave it their best shot this year, and they really just can't be on the floor together.
Yeah, it's just bad. they're done with it. They about 2.5 weeks ago, Malone said, "Nope, we're done," and he's kept his word on that. I don't think they played a second together since he put the kibosh on the Jerkic lineup.
Yeah, and for them to really take, I guess you could say the next step to maybe be a playoff team in next year or the year after, it seems like Moutier is going to have to. He's been a major disappointment this year. I don't know what fact is wrong with him, but yeah, you have any thoughts on him?
Yeah, I mean, I read a lot of stuff on him, and I had one of their beat reporters on a podcast of mine talking him up hard, like putting in a lot of work in his jump shot. Also, about the last 2 months of the season last year, he was the first guy to get in there for warmups. Spent a good 2.5 hours, pretty much tweaking his mechanics on his jumper, and all the effort was there, but man, it's just not happening. I mean, he's turnover prone. His assist, what he had, 1 assist in 3-game span last week, just so inefficient. He had one of the worst starts to his career from an efficiency standpoint, as far as high volume goes. So yeah, he's got something to work to do, man. In my opinion, and actually Malone said it's going to be a quote point guard by committee now. So they may and they should start Jameer Nelson and then let Moutier do a little bit of damage in the second unit. Maybe he could help to go up against weaker defense or something like that. Because, I mean, the way he's going right now, it's just bad. Really bad.
Yeah. When you look at his form, is his jump shot broken, or do you think there's potential where he can eventually develop?
Well, it's definitely not pure or anything. I mean, Jamal Murray's already got a better looking jump shot than he does. We can talk about him in a second. But I think it's all right. You could see, to make a different comparison, Michael Kidd-Gilchrist, he has that kind of his elbows in left field and all that. So you could see that Moutier is staying on balance more, and that was kind of the thing I noticed earlier in his career. Always falling to the side, you can't do that in the NBA. You don't have the room. You're not good enough to be honest. So yeah, they got to do something, man. That first unit is just so bad. I looked up some stats on a column I wrote today. They are among, I think, 224 lineups, 4-man combos that have played 70 minutes. That they have 3 of the bottom 9 in the NBA. Wow. Yeah, it's just so bad in their last 10. They had their worst. What other one did I have here? Yeah, it's just all Moutier. Moutier's his on-off differentials is great. They're pretty much a winning basketball team when Moutier is off the court. So yeah, he's something's got to change, man. I think Malone he's wanted to. They've really committed to him and letting him kind of have the growing pains, but he just has something else to do, man. He's just terrible right now.
And you never want to, when you ask about someone's form, the name Michael Kidd, not the last thing you want to hear about.
Right. Yeah, hey, Kevin Martin retired. He had that really weird shooting stroke, but he shot it really well.
Yeah, it's strange. Guys like him and Reggie Miller can make it work.
And even Marion had a really awful jump shot, but he made it work too, man.
Yeah, or didn't not that he's anywhere near in their class, but didn't Joakim Noah shoot 70% from the foul line one year?
Yeah, he had a really solid shooting year one season. And then did you see the other day when DeMarcus Cousins made fun of him for it?
yeah.
That was so good.
It didn't seem like he was it seemed like he was legit curious. He was just how do you shoot like that?
Yeah.
Let me know.
Yeah. Are you a boogie guy?
I'm a boogie when he's on the court, playing well. I'm a boogie guy. I love bigs that can shoot the 3. He's obviously completely unstoppable at times, but then you see some clips where he legit just isn't playing hard, and I just can't have that out of guys on my team. Yeah, especially the leader.
Do you think that being on a bad team is if he had been on a good team, maybe he'd be a little bit more inclined to give extra effort?
It would be fun to see, him under Greg Popovich or something.
Yeah, that'd be crazy.
Turned out I guess you could say that about everyone, though.
Yeah, right.
The GOAT. Anyway, on the opposite end of the spectrum from Moutier's shot, you brought up Jamal Murray, and I got to tell you, I am a huge fan. I wasn't coming into the year, but my God, he almost – I know you can't compare anyone to Steph Curry. That's kind of ridiculous. But just the way his game looks reminds me of a bit like him. Maybe a better comparison might be a Devin Booker with better defensive potential. What do you think about Murray?
Yeah, like you said, I view him more as a 2. When he came out and pre-draft, he was like, I want to be a 1. I want to play point guard pretty much exclusively. But no. He had a sub-1 assist to turnover ratio at Kentucky, had a sub-1 assist to turnover ratio at Summer League. He just is not a good ball handler. He's coming around. We saw him play, I want to say, about 12 minutes at the point in the game that Moutier missed on Thursday against the Wizards, and he looked all right. And his assist to turnover ratio is kind of on the rise, so he's doing a little bit better there. But yeah, like you said, he's great. He's a great scorer. He's a little hot and cold, which kind of I don't like. And obviously, shooting guards, that's kind of the name of the game, especially if you play DFS. You know, shooting guards are going to make or break you every night. So when he's on, he's great. Obviously, he started out his career 0-16 from the field, almost Jacques Vaughn style. But yeah, I like him a lot. I liked him coming into the draft. I liked him what I saw in summer league, preseason, and then this year after a slow start, he's got a really nice rhythm. Got a ton of dribbling potential, like Steph does, like you said. Like scoring wise, I could definitely see some Steph, but I think Steph's going to be a better overall ball handler for sure.
Right. Yeah, I know. He went right behind Buddy Hield and
which looks like a bad one. I mean, Buddy Hield went. That was the thing. Like, who are the Pelicans going to take at 6? And they took him, and then the Nuggets didn't even think twice to grab him, even though they had a bunch of potential there. But Chris Dunn went 5.
That's what I think. Yeah, Merry Christmas, Denver. You know.
Yeah, right. Apparently, I've tweeted out something about Murray, and man, Wolf's Twitter got a handle on it, and I just got quote tweeted like 30 times about oh yeah, why do we take Chris Dunn over this guy? It was crazy, man. But yeah, I'm not. Are we ready to give up on Dunn yet, or what?
I mean, it's because of his age. The answer might be yes. You know, when you have these guys that are supposed to be, quote unquote, ready to contribute immediately, and they look that bad, it has to give you concern. He seems like he has the work ethic, and I would think, at minimum, he can turn himself into a positive defender.
Yeah, he was a really good defender in college, and then in summer league, another guy that was just ridiculous. He was just getting to the rim at will, but his jumper is broken right now. Had a bad preseason shooting the rock. He just can't do it. Like, he's kind of like Giannis when he was first coming up. It's like no shot at all, which obviously Giannis has improved there.
Right, and we're already seeing how much Rubio's holding back the Timberwolves. I wouldn't say holding back necessarily, but how much his lack of floor spacing really hurts that offense overall. And it's like, is that really what the Timberwolves want more of,
Yeah, and the one thing that kind of made me mad about a week and a half ago was not getting the offense to go through Towns enough. And they finally started giving him the ball more, but, man, Rubio just needs to relax, play defense, and just figure out, not even shoot, man. Like you said, he's a broken scorer. Decent from 3 when he's open, but besides that, man, anytime there's anyone near him, just pretty much pass it.
Yeah, I was the biggest Rubio fanboy ever coming in.
Oh, yeah.
I hope the Patriots out there don't get mad at me for saying this, but I actually rooted for Team Spain over Team USA when they had those awesome Gasol brothers, Rudy Fernandez,
Ibaka on the team.
It was just like I said with the Sacramento Kings. I love teams that pass well, and those teams, Spain, every player on the floor could pass well. It was beautiful, beautiful basketball.
Yeah, Juan Carlos Navarro has always been pretty good. He's been near and dear to my heart. A lot of guys that are pretty cool.
Right. So as I was setting up this podcast, I was going through a few of your Twitter timeline, doing some research, and I saw that you had a hypothetical question. And when I saw you post this, I knew you and I were going to get along great. There's nothing that I love more than wasting an hour on random hypotheticals and rating young players. And I think you posted a Twitter poll question was, for the next 5 years, if you had your choice, how would you rank Embiid, Gobert, Jokic, and Miles Turner? Embiid won your poll in a runaway, and I kind of think he was a bit too good to be included in that. So for the purpose of this discussion, I want to switch it up a bit. Let's take Embiid out and throw in Andre Drummond and Jonas Valanciunas. Since, they're about the same age as Gobert, I think they can, still fit in that young center mold. How would you rank those 5, or do you think it's too close to call?
It's close. I mean, what Rudy Gobert's been doing right now, I think I have to put him number 1. He's just been so good on defense, and another thing he's really improved on is screening. Same with Miles Turner, who we'll get to in a minute. But yeah, he's been him and DeAndre Jordan among players with one pick and roll possession per game are like way ahead of everyone else. I think DJ just passed him last night by like 0.01 points per possession. So he's been incredible. He's obviously dunking a lot. 60 of his 100 makes are from off a dunk. So that obviously helps his field goal percentage, which leads the league. Also leads the league in 70 true shooting percentage, which is pretty cool.
I just saw that as I was researching the podcast. 70%. I mean, obviously, I wouldn't expect that to continue all year. But man, if he can be anywhere near that type of player on the offensive end, I think we already think he's a stud defensively.
Yeah, he's a defensive player. I mean, we'll probably talk about that later. But his rim protection is so good, and considering all the injuries the Jazz have had, that's even just more to sign off how good he is, man. And he's still growing. Like everyone that does fantasy, we all thought Gobert was going to break out last year. Turns out we were just pretty much a year early. So I think he's legit, man. Like he's right up there for a player I would take. Are you with me, or do you have someone else?
Absolutely. I thought in your poll, like I said, I thought Embiid was the clear winner, but I thought Gobert was the clear number 2. And if there's anyone who might actually challenge Embiid down the road, I think it's Gobert. I just love rim protectors that are non-zeros on offense, let alone guys with 70% true shooting.
Yeah, right. And his usage is up, man. I mean, when you see a big man drop like a 65 to 70. Like I know Tyson Chandler, I think he had like 71 true shooting like 5 years ago. But he only had it was like a 10 usage rate or something like that. Like Gobert is 15-ish, so he's getting possessions. And yeah, they even joked that they're going to have him shoot the technical free throws soon. He shot the free throws better lately. So yeah, he's great, man. Who do you think is? And also, do you want to touch on Embiid? I mean, I love it, man. Trust the process till I die. I have 2 Embiid shirts. I have some Sam Hinkie shirts. I love the guy, but man, that injury was so bad as much as he was. So I don't think it's that much of a blowout, but yeah, I definitely have Embiid number 1.
Yeah, if it were up to me, I wouldn't mind touching on Embiid every single podcast. He's my favorite player in the league right now, both in terms of what he's doing on the floor, his personality off it, the whole backstory with Hinkie and him sitting out a few years and him kind of trolling the current front office and just keep making references to Hinkie, every chance he gets. Man, he's a legit 3-point shooter, a legit, the potential to be a defensive stud. He has, I'm getting a little carried away here, but he has greatest of all time equity.
He's up there, man. Him and Jordan, I think him and Michael Jordan are the only rookies that have a 35 usage rate in their first season or something like that. Yeah, his efficiency's dropped a tad. So he was at 60-40, 60 true shooting and then 40 usage. But Boogie actually passed him last night for number 2 in the NBA. Obviously, Westbrook's number 1. And he's only shooting 57 true shooting, which is still incredible. But it's not – I love that. That 60-40 sounds like a baseball kind of 40-40 kind of a thing, But yeah, obviously trust the process to the fullest. And like you said, he's shooting a ton of jumpers, man. He's a 45% effective field goal on his jumpers, which is really good for a big man, man. And him and Towns, just their face-up skills are like Durant. They're just so good in so many different ways.
Yeah, it's gonna be fun in 30 years from now when the NBA is just full of 7-footers who have all these point guard skills and can shoot threes, and it will be such an evolved league at that point in time. Yeah,
it's crazy how I love Embiid so much, man. Do you think that we're ever going to drop his restriction? I mean, they pretty much sit him down at any sign of trouble.
Yeah, I mean, I would think that for this year they're going to be really safe. They're obviously not playoff contenders this year, so there's no real point in pushing them when they don't have to. But yeah, I don't know. That's obviously, the doctor's calls, I guess.
Yeah, right.
But big man injuries can be scary, Yes. They can be very reoccurring. And so I would definitely want to take a safe approach if I could there.
Yeah, for sure. He has the navicular bone break, which is by far the worst foot break for a big man. That's why it took so much time off. The most common foot break that we see is a 5th metatarsal fracture. And that's what the Jones fracture and all that has about an 8-9% chance of a refracture. But navicular has way more stuff that hurts down the line. Do you want to move on from Embiid? We could talk about Embiid for another hour.
Yeah, I think it's pretty clear we got Embiid 1, Gobert number 2.
Yeah.
I'm really torn on the other four.
Yeah, it's close.
Miles, Drummond, and Valanciunas. I guess I would tend to go with Miles just because I don't even. I'm waffling in the moment here. Miles to me seems like the prototypical center of the future, kind of this do-it-all type that has range. He can defend on the perimeter. He can block shots at the rim. I don't know. Would you have Miles next up as well?
That's exactly what I was going to say. Is the prototypical skill set right now? A big man who can protect the paint. He hit 4 threes on last night, career high. Had 3 threes on Wednesday. He only had 3 threes all of last season. So he's really done well. Went to the line 10 times on Friday for a career high. Makes for a career high. Like, his offense is really starting to turn the corner, and still so young. He's 20 years old, and I mean, his foul rate's been pretty solid as far as like not fouling too much. So all the positives you want. Like, if he just gets a little bit better, he could be right there with Gobert. Like, I think his ceiling is probably better than Gobert's is. But then keep in mind too, he had that weird walking gait injury at Texas where he wasn't really hurt, but a lot of the training staff, and the reason why he fell to number 11 was because there was concern about his just knees not really being stable. So there's a little bit of risk there. So that kind of ties in with Embiid. But yeah, I mean, for the way I want to build my team, man, I love to have Miles Turner as my 5-man for sure. So, and like I said about earlier, the screening has been great. He's been sitting so awesome. He was a terrible screener last year. He's just been really good there. Yeah,
I would think him and Paul George, both in terms of their talent level and just the prototypes of players that they are. There's not 2 better players in the league to field. I mean, there's LeBron, obviously, but like there's, that's what a start to a franchise you have there. It really tilts me that I haven't been a fan of some of the moves the Pacers have made, particularly getting rid of George Hill. But yeah, that's what a duo going forward they have there.
Yeah, for sure. And Monta's really. Man, why aren't they bringing Monta off the bench? By the way, like he's hurt now, but I mean that makes he hasn't up until he came off the bench like 3 weeks ago or 2 weeks ago or something like that. Before that, he didn't come off the bench since George W. Bush was the president. It's crazy. He just starts, and he's been a very 1-2 6-man Jamal Crawford style. Like, I think if you put him with a big man on the bench who could screen a little bit, obviously not Al Jefferson. Like, I think he can have success there because he's really fallen off. I think he's in the bottom 10% for real plus minus or something. He has had a really, really bad season.
Yeah, absolutely. He's totally fits the prototype of that, undersized shooting guard who can, just dominate second units. Yeah. I don't know. I never know if it's, an ego thing or if certain players just aren't willing to do that. Obviously, you need the player to be willing to buy into that. And I really have no clue if he is or not.
I also, just to add on to that, I think that's a big reason why Joseph Nurkic is starting. I think he's very ego-based for having to start. Like, he'll actually get upset if he doesn't start. I feel like that's something.
Isn't he too young to be making those demands?
Right? Yeah, because his social media is just ridiculous about hashtag prove them wrong, hashtag Bosnian Beast. I don't think he's tweeted out in a while because he's not really proving anyone wrong except for the people who thought he'd be better this year. So yeah, he's been pretty down. All right, want to move on past Miles?
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah, I think I have Miles a little bit ahead than you do. Like, it wasn't really that close for me.
Okay, I could see that. Just certainly based on age, when you're in comparison to Drummond and youngness, I can buy that for sure.
Yeah. So who do you got after that?
I probably would have Jonas Valanciunas last, and then I would have either Jokic or Drummond in the next spot.
Yeah, I have Jokic next for sure. For the reasons we've all said, we don't need to spend too much time on this. Just a great passer. I think he's a solid defender. He's mobile enough to stop pick and rolls and come over screens and all that good stuff. So yeah, I have pretty much firm Jokic on that one for me.
Well, let me try to make a Drummond argument then. Granted, the free throw shooting is just horrific and is going to hamper you in the playoffs and whenever teams want to attack that. But the Pistons, I believe they're either first or second in defensive rating this year. Obviously, center plays a big role in that, and under Van Gundy seems to be he was the Dwight guy. I had Dwight, now he's putting Drummond in that role. I still hold out hope that Drummond can be, that dominant defensive presence. Maybe I'm just letting his size and the eye test give me a little carried away in that regard. I'm not sure.
Yeah, like he had a really bad start to his season, especially in the offensive end. His efficiency was below 50 true shooting for a while, but he's picked it up lately. So, and actually, I looked into it deeper. I was like, oh, maybe it's because Reggie Jackson's back. He's actually had better numbers without Jackson since Jackson's returned. But yeah, he's shooting the ball better. He had those back-to-back 2020 games. He's been much better on the glass. Personally, I tend to not value rebounding, I guess. Like, I don't really see that as like an important skill that I have to have, which makes Drummond probably that's like the best thing for him. But yeah, I don't know. And like you said, they're third, I think, in defensive rating with Memphis is number one. Yeah, they're barely. I think the Hawks just passed them again, so they were probably two. But yeah, it's more Van Gundy and everything too. But I don't know, man. If JV was more consistent, I would have Drummond last for sure. And like you said, I can't take a guy that can't hit a free throw. Like maybe it's just why. Maybe it's his personal thing. But I'd probably put Drummond last, but super close with him and JV. When JV's on, man, JV's the man. But he
can't dominate, for sure. But then, like, you put him in a pick and roll on defense, and sometimes he just can't stay on the floor.
Yeah, Bebe Nugier is taking minutes from him, man. That's not a good sign.
I actually wouldn't mind JV as a second unit guy. Although it's weird. You're talking about that six-man role earlier with Monta Ellis. It seems like shooting guards get put in that role a lot. You don't see a lot of big men really buy into that, scoring off the bench role.
Yeah, definitely. And like they had a big thing about when they would stagger JV like with Lowry and all that. And Lowry wanted to play with them more. Like he would always say how he likes to play with JV. But I'm waiting. I thought this would be the year where we avoid that 2-week period where it's like, JV, where you at? But we're having it again. So he's kind of come out of it. He had that bad, I want to say, like 5-game stretch to start the month. But he's starting to kind of figure it out.
So one thing you said about Miles when you mentioned the screening, I wanted to ask you this because it seems like you're a big stats guy in general. You are constantly referencing stats, and I am too. I totally buy into this. But the screening thing, that seems like something you must have watched, or correct me if I'm wrong. Do you have data on that, or is that just like an eye test?
Eye test, yeah. I've grown up, my every coach I ever had pretty much just like nailed into my brain how important screening was. So that's something I always watch. It's just, I mean, other than the pick and roll man for synergy, I mean, it's kind of tough to tell how good a screener is. Like you said, that's pretty much eye test for me on that one.
Gotcha. Cool. All right, let's move on a bit here. I actually missed this weekend in NBA action because I was at the DraftKings NFL live final, and that took up much of my focus. When I was last watching the Clippers, they were getting blown out by the Warriors. And I went online and, was catching up, and I realized Chris Paul had perhaps the game of the season. I know there have been a lot of amazing games by Westbrook, Harden, Durant, and everyone, but my God, 20 points, 20 assists, and no turnovers. That's just insane. It made me start thinking a bit about Chris Paul's legacy and where he's going to go down in terms of all-time point guards. Obviously, the big knock is that he's never made a conference finals. Personally, I want to say he's the best point guard of all time, but, can you really say that if he never makes the conference finals?
Yeah, I think you can. I'm from the school of thought where, maybe because I play so much fantasy, that I don't really care that much about playoffs, man. Like if you go out there and smash every year, and I thought like Stephen Curry had one of the best offensive seasons, if not the best season last year, with how efficient he was. But everyone's like, how could you say he had the best season when he doesn't win a title? Like, all right, he had the best season. But yeah, he's CP3's line was crazy, man. To do a 2020 in under 30 minutes and no turnovers, like you said, I think that's the line of the year. And he was efficient, 8 of 16, 3 of 6 from 3, so he had the efficiency too. But that's a big win to score 133 like that in efficient fashion, man, with not that many possessions either. Like that was just crazy. But yeah, as far as I can't really speak on like Oscar Robertson and all the old school point guards. But yeah, as far as I'm concerned, I think he's been the best point guard that I've really seen. Like you said, the assist to turnover ratio is always one of the best in the league. I think he's a really good shooter. He's been arguably the best mid-range player in the NBA in the past 3-4 seasons. Yeah, just incredible pick and roll man for the ball handler. Like he's almost perfect. He's undersized. Defense is good. You really can't knock CP3 at all, other than the fact he doesn't make the playoffs or doesn't do well in the playoffs enough.
Right. I guess my counter argument against your, playoffs don't matter, or not that they don't matter.
Right.
I would say, and I don't even know if this is necessarily applicable to CP3. Certain players do the physicality of the playoffs definitely hurts them a bit. I would think, like Steph and Durant maybe get hurt a tiny bit when the refs swallow their whistles. But I don't know if that even applies to CP3 because he's not that undersized. He seems like he can play pretty physical.
Yeah.
I think it just might be bad variance, in the playoffs. But like in terms of public perception, I'm really rooting for him. Basically, I don't want to have to be alone on this island, or I guess with you here, where I'm saying CP3 is the greatest of all time, and everyone's just like, well, he had Blake Griffin and DeAndre Jordan. How come he couldn't do anything?
Yeah, I mean he's great. I was looking at VORP the other day, the value over replacement players, and couple of his seasons are like the only season in the past like decade or so that are in there. I mean he's just incredible. So yeah, like I said, I don't know how people just like that's such an easy thing to go to, man. Like no rings, but yeah, CP3 is if you need to win a game, man. Like it's hard to argue against CP3.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, I wanted to ask you a bit about my favorite team, although I'm not a huge hardcore fan, especially since DFS came along and that's taken up much of my focus. But I'm a Washington Wizards fan. 2 years ago, it looked like they were on the cusp of really breaking through. I think they swept the Toronto Raptors in the first round and then really pushed the Atlanta Hawks in the second round. There were rumors about Durant possibly joining them, and maybe they were going to be the next super team. And my God, have things gone downhill since then. It seems like they have the talent. They made a coaching change, and that didn't seem to help. What do you think the problem is in DC?
So I think when they finally got going, like when they were at their best, when they were like just on the cusp of making, like when Wall was really doing well, a lot of dimes, and they had that, you'll remember the Ariza, Martell Webster, and then Beal when it was his first or second season. Like that was probably when they were at their best. And that's because they lived on Wall driving and kicking for three-point shooting. I think that those three guys I mentioned were all in the top 6 for catch and shoot threes. And this year, they're only 27th in spot-up shooting frequency. It's just they got to kind of get back to that where Wall is being more of a distributor. Wall's not the most efficient player. But, yeah, when he's able to pass it out, and obviously their front court I'm not really too impressed with. Gortat's offense has kind of fallen off a little bit after he was one of the best screeners in the game, I thought. But he hasn't really been that effective when he's out there. Markieff Morris gives me a headache sometimes watching him play. I hate isolations from mid-range, especially a guy who's not like a lights-out shooter. So I'm not a big Markieff guy, so I would chalk it up to him as being part of probably the number 1 or 2 reason. I think Bradley Beal's playing better, but like you said, it's too much like isolation, and they need to have more flow in their offense. I think that's a big reason.
Yeah, it seems like when I hear you say that they had success with Wall driving and kicking out, it seems like Bradley Beal will be the perfect complement to that.
Yeah, right.
I know there are some rumors about Bradley Beal and John Wall having some friction between them and not getting along, but it really seems like on the court they should be perfect for each other. I don't know do you think it's a coaching thing, or is it just if they aren't developing as expected type of thing?
Can't really chalk it up to coaching. I think it's just more like a system thing. I mean, Beal, I love that he's going to the line a little bit more. I like that he's kind of shooting more threes, and he's shooting well from 3, 41.2% from 3 this year. And his turnovers are down. So I think, and I saw someone say that Beal's had like a disappointing season. Like what? I think he's been fine. So his assists are up, although he's played more minutes. So yeah, I don't think it's a problem. Like it's just, they just either need to figure out better ways to get them in the ball. So I don't want to compare him to Steph and Clay, but kind of that same way where they can kind of play off each other. Just they both really like to have the ball in their hands. So obviously Wall's not nearly the shooter Steph is, so that definitely hurts too. But yeah, like you said, I think it's part coaching just to get a little bit more creative offensive stuff. We all know that I think the Wizards were towards the bottom in isolation plays last year, and then we know the Brooks days. Well, he had Westbrook and Durant, so I was curious to see how their isolation would fit And I still think there's too much of it, man. They got to get rid of that and kind of just play more team ball.
If you were, let's play GM for a while, if we were in charge of the Washington Wizards, do you want to go forward with the Beagle, Otto, Wall trio, or do you think they need to make a shakeup?
I like those three guys, man. I think, and by the way, Otto Porter, which I'm sure we'll talk about when we get to most improved player, he's been great this year. So I like him. I love low usage guys next to high usage guys that can shoot the ball efficiently. So Otto's not the problem. But yeah, it kind of depends. Like, I think Beal maybe could be with someone better than like Wall as far as like a little bit more shooting. But yeah, like I said, I blame him more on the front court. I blame him more on Markieff. So yeah, they really could use another four who I guess is a little bit better defensively and just doesn't need to shoot that much.
They could really use a Kevin Durant too. Huh?
Yeah, that would help. Dan Snyder couldn't persuade him to come over when he had the luxury boxes or something.
Yeah, yeah, I'm with you. I really like the improvements I've seen this year from Beal and Porter. And as much as I hate to say it, I might start shopping Wall. I love point guards. He has a very unique skill set. He obviously in transition is a complete monster. He can give you some rim protection from the point guard spot. But if he has value on the trade market, if he can get you, I don't know, a DeMarcus Cousins type or something like that, then I might look to move him.
Yeah, like you said, they're not going to be good right now. So if you can get him for even like a couple good draft picks with a good draft class coming up, I think it's on the table. And then yeah, just to hammer home that point, Otto Porter 62 true shooting this year, and then Beal's 58, and Wall's pretty solid at 54. So I think that's up for him. But
right.
Yeah, that's a lot of usage. 26.2 usage for Beal. 31.5 for Wall, so that's a ton of usage, man. But yeah, I think it's not like panic button time, but maybe it's the new system they need time to develop.
Right. All right, moving on. In my last podcast,
or do you want to hit Oubre really quick? Because Oubre's really been kind of all of a sudden he's been playing a lot of clutch minutes. They played him a 12-minute stint last night on Monday. So what are your thoughts on Oubre, who's been playing a lot better lately?
To be honest, I'm still really torn on Oubre. I have hopes that he can become a solid rotation player. It's nice to see him finally getting the minutes. Yeah, not a huge opinion on either way on him. I kind of want to take a wait and see approach. I don't know. Do you have more insight on him?
Yeah, well, when I first saw him at Summer League in his rookie season, I was like, oh my God, this guy's horrible. He was one of the worst players I've seen in Summer League as far as high volume goes. But then he kind of clicked last year at Summer League, and then we saw him in the preseason where Scott Brooks said that the small forward starting job was, quote, up for grabs, and he played well. And so a lot of people were like, I would get a lot of questions like, oh yeah, should we still draft Otto Porter in fantasy? Like, yeah, you should. But so I think he's played well. I think he's exceeded expectations, and he's on a good path. And then I like that small ball, man. Otto Porter at the 4 is something that I would use more.
In general, I'm always a fan of small ball. It seems like that's the way the NBA is headed. You just need a rim protector with those 4, and ideally that lineup should fit pretty well.
Yeah. Is Jan Mahimi looking like the worst contract of the offseason, or what?
Was he going to get on the court?
Right. 14 minutes on the season, I think.
Yeah, who knows what's going on there.
Yeah, that guy's always hurt, man.
All right, let me ask you about some awards here. We discussed MVP and Rookie of the Year on my last episode of the podcast, so I kind of wanted to discuss Sixth Man of the Year, Most Improved Player, Coach of the Year, all the other stuff. I guess I'll start out with Sixth Man. Is Lou Williams just the biggest lock of all time at this point?
Yeah, I mean, if you're looking at all those season awards, he's by far. I mean, MVP is a debate. Like, you can't. It's almost an impossible debate to make against the Williams. Just 60.9 true shooting, 30.2 usage rate. That's crazy. Obviously, that's helped by his recent outburst. But, yeah, I mean, he's doing really everything you want a sixth man to do. Score the ball with not much talent around him, especially with Jordan Clarkson being kind of disappointing this year. So, yeah, it's definitely Lou Williams and a runaway. Like, I would be shocked if anyone could came down on him.
Yeah, I struggle to even think of a number 2, really.
Yeah, I was looking at that. The names I came up with were Patrick Patterson, just because the Raptors are playing so freaking well right now.
Okay.
Yeah, has a 14.9 net rating, 51 true shooting is not that great, but his defense has been really good. The Raptors with Lowry and their bench is he's just ridiculous. Let me pull up the stat on that really quick. They had what was it? Lowry with Corey Joseph, Terrence Ross, Patrick Patterson, and Bebe Nogueira. They have a 131 offensive rating. That's tops in the NBA for lineups with at least 48 minutes. So, like, their second unit is just killer. Wow. So I think with that unit dominating so much, I think that makes him a really good case. Another guy kind of by the same token is John Lure, who's playing three positions basically. Well, he's playing power forward, but he's playing next to Marcus Morris. He's playing next to Tobias, playing next to Drummond, playing some 5-4. I mean, he's done a really nice job in that unit. And, he's been a very under-the-radar guy. And one of the best – like I saw Yahoo write up a story yesterday saying he was the number one – like best buy contracts for like wins per dollar contract or something along those lines. And it was like not even close. Like Kevin Durant was number 2 on that. But
right.
Yeah, John Lowe been really good. I mean, we thought last year was kind of a fluke when we saw him go off with the Suns, but yeah, he's legit, man.
Yeah, I like the signing at the time. I don't know why with Van Gundy, I always want to make comparisons to the Orlando teams.
Yeah.
But Lure he reminds me of that Rashard Lewis type player who can, space the floor next to a dominant rim protecting big man.
Yeah, and Van Gundy also really liked him. I'm apparently Mr. Screen guy today, but Van Gundy always talks about he loves the Ish Smith and Lure pick and rolls. So with Ish now on the bench, it's going to be kind of interesting to see how those two fit together. And that's going to definitely be the pet play of the second unit, I would think.
I will say, this is without a doubt the most I've ever talked about screening on my podcast. And yeah, it's super interesting.
I don't even do it. Like, I guess because we're not talking much about fantasy, and that's probably why I'm leaning to it. But there's a lot of big men, too, that are kind of like most improved player. There's a lot of bigs, which we'll get to, so. Yeah.
Let me ask you, what, in your opinion, this might be more of a coaching question, I guess, but what actually goes into being a good screener? Is it just having a wide body?
And angles. Like the angle which you set the screen is always something I watch. Like if you set it too high, too low, obviously you want to make sure that you kind of get the guy kind of off balance to really mess up the switch. So yeah, just little stuff like that. It's kind of tough to describe, but like I know a good screen when I see one, I guess.
Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah.
All right, most improved player. I'm actually stealing the thunder here from a podcast you did the other day where I thought you kind of nailed it with Davis Paddock. It seems like Giannis is in the public's eye, he's the runaway favorite at this point. But I thought you brought up a great point. You brought up JaMychal Green, who I wasn't considering at all. But I thought it was a really fascinating choice. Why did you pick him?
Defense. I mean, like we just said earlier, they're number 1 in defense. His rebounding numbers have really gone up. I mean, the Grizzlies are rolling with the nasty 9 for like 4 games, and they're not even like good except for really Gasol. They did it without Conley. They turned Tony Allen into a serviceable offensive player, and it's really just been JaMychal Green. And I think that the game on Saturday when they beat Golden State, and he was on Kevin Durant most of that game. So I think that him against KD's, he's done a really good job. Earlier in the season, he shut down Towns. He kept AD in check one game. He's just gone up against really the best power forward, center, or even small forward when the situation calls for it. And his efficiency is solid. I mean, he's got 47% from the field, 80% from the line, adding 0.6 threes. So he's just been, as far as just improvement goes, like obviously you see Giannis, but I just think that I like to give the most improved player to a guy who's on a good team and is just kind of surprising under the radar. Like I thought Will Barton should have got it last year, but I like JaMychal.
Right. Yeah. It seems like
I'm sorry. Will Barton.
Everyone almost expected him to take.
Yeah. I meant Will Barton for 6 man. CJ McCollum obviously had to get it last year.
Gotcha.
But, yeah. So I think he's up there. What do you think? You watch any JaMychal?
I've paid more. I've had him in DFS a bunch of times, so I haven't noticed his defense quite as much as you have. But yeah, I'm with you in terms of. I'm pretty much with you there. I was a bit surprising to hear you say his name, but once I thought about it, yeah, I'm on board. Does he have the foot speed to really stay with guys like Durant? Because that kind of shocks me.
Not really. Just lateral quickness kind of thing. Where he's not going to really. He runs the floor pretty well though. But for what he's done on defense, I've been pretty impressed with it. And they're the way they've won the last 6 games, man. It's just he's playing clutch minutes. They got him figured out. And that was really when you thought about the Grizzlies and how they were going to switch Debo to the bench. That brought to my mind. I was like, all right, man, JaMychal Green, you're up. And he's exceeded all expectations. To make a bold move like that, when we've seen the grit and grind for 6 years now with Debo and Mark playing next to each other almost exclusively, and now they're only playing 6-7 minutes next to each other, or something like that. And it's been because of JaMychal Green. And we'll talk more stuff about the Grizzlies too. But other guys that I'd throw in there, I don't know about you, but Giannis isn't even in there for me. I would put Otto Porter, Miles Turner, and Capella all in there.
Miles Turner was the guy I was going to mention. I know we talked about it a bit earlier. But yeah, he's taking that huge leap forward. He might be my pick right now. I don't know. It's cool. I think this is perhaps one of the more interesting award discussions.
Absolutely. You can say, I've seen Julius Randle. People make case for him, who's been pretty good. George Hill, if he had played more, I think he would make a much stronger case. If George Hill played 23 games versus I think 11, it would be George Hill and it's a wrap. But he's just been hurt too much. He's out again tonight. I just can't stay on the court.
Yeah, it was awesome to see George Hill early in the year take on increased usage with Gordon Hayward out and just not miss a beat. I love George Hill. I love versatile players that can run the point or play off the ball, can defend, just do everything. I'm a huge George Hill fan. If he comes back and plays the majority of the year and puts up the numbers that he has been, I can certainly buy him as most improved.
One thing I just want to add on Giannis is the reason why I don't think he's really making a strong case is look at his post-break numbers last year. 19 points, 9 boards, 7.2 assists. That's actually higher. Still 1.9 blocks, 1.4 steals. His efficiency's slightly down, but that's because he missed free throws a lot. But, he made a really, really strong post-break run. So, compare that to his season averages this year, 22 points, so a 2-3-point uptick, 8.9 boards, that's the same. 5.9 dimes, that's down. 2.0 blocks, that's about the same. He's not that much better than the guys that we just said.
Yeah, absolutely. And the thing I like about your JaMychal Green pick is that you can see it contributing in the win column.
Yep.
If he's, actually on, a team that, is going to make the playoffs and, cause some noise when they're there.
You think so? I don't know how I feel about that, man. I don't know if I'm ready to buy into Memphis. I doubted them earlier in the season. But they're just playing like you said, top in defensive rating and trending up too. They weren't doing too hot earlier in the season, and then they get Conley back.
Yeah, I like Marc Gasol too much to think that. Basically, they will not be an easy out. Let me put it that way. Obviously, the top 3 teams in the West are pretty stacked, and I don't think they can compete with them. But no one wants to face them in the playoffs.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think let me check one thing real quick. Oh, no, barely behind. No. I thought JaMychal Green played team high in minutes. He's actually second behind Gasol.
Okay. Let me ask you about Coach of the Year. I kind of want to approach this from 2 different angles. If it was up to me, we might as well just rename this the Greg Popovich Award. We give it to him every year because, honestly, he's just the best coach. Maybe Brad Stevens or Rick Carlisle every now and then. But, it seems like the way this award is actually handled in real life, it's not given to the best coach. It's given to the best narrative, the coach of the team that was, most surprising. So who do you think has actually, impressed you with what they've done in coaching? And then who do you think, I guess, has the best narrative and might, the mainstream will pick up on as Coach of the Year?
To just add to your point, Steve Kerr, he had an incredible team. And he didn't even coach the whole season. I thought it was kind of a joke that he won the award. I thought it should have went to Popper Stotts. But anyways, man, like I just said with these Grizzlies, man, David Fizdale's just pushing all the right buttons. When you're getting good minutes out of Troy Williams, Troy Daniels, like I said, Tony Allen's been good on offense. Gasol's playing his best. They're playing with Andrew Harrison right now, and they're winning a lot of games. So I think the recency factor and the narrative with the whole Nasty Nine thing, I think he makes a great case. So it's between him and Pop for me. They're 19-5, 13-1 on the road. They're not even getting good minutes out of Marcus Aldridge right now. Pop Gasol's been kind of dinged up. Tony Allen's been dinged up. So it's pretty much a 2-horse race for me. And then you could also make another case for Dwayne Casey. And then I think there's a pretty significant drop-off. I mean, Steve Clifford's in the mix. Even Doc Rivers has coached up some pretty solid games, although the Clippers defense has kind of fallen off a little lately. But yeah, that's kind of where I'm at.
Yeah, I in particular, adding on to your point about Memphis, Marc Gasol all of a sudden can shoot threes, and at 32 years, I got the stats in front of me here. He had never taken more than 0.2 threes a game, and all of a sudden he's taking 3.6 this year. I kind of doubt he just did that on his own. That seems like a bit of a coaching thing, and obviously, I think we're both huge fans of big men that can shoot and space the floor.
Yep.
I'm not that big of a Dwayne Casey supporter. I like their team a lot, but I think he maybe this is a DeMar DeRozan thing too, but he just relies on those mid-range 2-pointers a little too much. Trying to think who else I would have in the discussion here.
I'll add on Casey. The Raptors right now are on pace to have the best offense ever for offensive rating.
That's a fair point.
Yeah, so that's kind of, I mean, their offense has been so good. It actually one thing I thought that was kind of crazy is their first unit is actually negative net rating.
Wow.
I looked it up. I was like, whoa. But then their second, third, fourth most used lineups are all ridiculous. Like I said earlier with the Lowry lineup. So like I said, he's pushing the right buttons, man. I'm not usually a KC guy. I'm always bashing DeMar DeRozan on like every pod because I hate mid-range shots like Harry B too. But what about I had this debate too. It may take a second to think about it. What do you think would be last for Coach of the Year rankings? Like 30. If you had to rank all 30, what coach do you think is hurting his team the most?
Well, the biggest is, let me start off by just listing some disappointing teams. I mean, I guess we already mentioned the Wizards. The Timberwolves certainly haven't taken a step forward, we thought. I like him a lot as a defensive coach, but I don't know what's going on in Orlando. Maybe that's more of a player personnel thing, with just all those big men there.
Yeah.
But yeah, those three jump to mind, I guess.
Yeah, I think it's got to be I made a case for Thibodeau. I mean, they have like 3 or 4 guys in the bottom 20 for defensive, real defensive plus minus. Their team defense is so bad, and their team offense is so bad. There's just so much. They're not sharing the ball properly, man. It's just that team is broken. I thought that'd be way more fun to watch. I mean, they're tied for the worst record in the NBA right now. Like it's crazy to me.
Thibodeau obviously came in with a huge defensive reputation. And then when you coming into the year, I thought pairing that with Wiggins, we'd really see Wiggins develop on the defensive end. Yeah, Tibbs was he just overrated, or I don't even, it's hard to pinpoint because obviously we're not sitting in practices and we can't see what's actually.
Yeah, I mean, I just don't know if it's going to take a while to embrace his system, but there's just so many blown defensive assignments that they're giving us so many easy buckets at times. So maybe they'll get it figured out eventually. But man, as of right now, that team's just really bad. Like you said, other teams, Scott Brooks has definitely got to be up there, and like Frank Vogel, like I think if he probably had his hand in that, but man, they really. And I say this on my pod all the time, like the Sam Hinkie zig when everyone else is zagging. That's kind of what they're doing in Orlando with the way that they just went, all right, we'll go straight bigs. We'll never roll with a small 4 or anything like that. I think Aaron Gordon's played like 15 minutes at the 4 all season or something like that. They just love that 2 big rotation. They're rolling with 3 bigs right now. And now with Vooch hurt, they're kind of in a bad spot. I mean, they played Steven Zimmerman on Saturday.
If I had to throw an off-the-radar pick out there, especially since this guy hasn't had a lot of team success, I really like what Kenny Atkinson's done in Brooklyn.
Yeah.
They're 6-17 it says here. But just in terms of trying to separate, the coaching from the results, I like a lot of what they're doing. It seems like the guys play hard for him. I like that Lopez is shooting threes now. He might be, a coach on the rise, and when they finally get a good team, I would, put him in the conversation.
Yeah, for sure. Keep in mind, when Jeremy Lin went down, I'm not the biggest Jeremy Lin fan in the world, but they started out the season pretty much right around 500 before he went down. And then they just been rolling with losses. And then last night, we saw them hang real tight with Houston in Houston. So, yeah, he's definitely he may be in the top 10 for Coach of the Year because what they've gotten out of Trevor Booker, that's just he's having a career year already, not even close. Just Joe Harris has turned into someone decent. Bohan Bogdanovich has been okay. You mentioned Brooks having improved efficiency. I mean, Anthony Bennett's given the minutes now. Like he has nothing there. And yeah, I mean, they hang tight. They're probably like, I think 27th, 28th in net rating or something like that. But when they have Lynn, I feel like they're almost like 20th in net rating. Like they're kind of okay.
Yeah, I mean, he walked into legit what has to be the worst situation in the league, both in terms of current roster and future assets, having traded all those draft picks away. But I think there's finally some hope. It's going to take a while without those draft picks. But I like the front office moves. I like the guys they brought in, and I think Nets fans can actually. There's a light at the end of the tunnel there now.
Yeah, I'm actually a Nets fan. I don't really root too much for them anymore since I kind of go national. Man, they probably have the two worst trades in the past decade, with obviously the Boston trade and then the Gerald Wallace for the Dame pick. Like, so bad.
Your little results oriented, it has to be Dame.
Yeah, right.
But still, yeah, I'm with you completely.
Yeah, so bad. Billy King, man, just never get another job.
All right, Mike, we've gone over the hour mark here. Much for being on. Was there anything else you wanted to add?
No, man, this is great. I'd love to come on again and just talk some hoops, talk some screens. So whatever's on the menu, man, I'm down for it.
Absolutely, dude. I thoroughly enjoyed it, and I would definitely love to have you back on.